When the trunk opened, the first thing I saw wasn't the gun. It was the dog standing behind him, silent, soaked, growling like God had sent him to decide who lived tonight. The rain was falling sideways, hard enough to sting. Thunder cracked above the deserted highway as headlights sliced through the storm. He thought no one could see us out here. The man called Cole pulled the tarp off my face. His breath smelled like metal and whiskey. "End of the line, sweetheart," he said. I was 8 months pregnant. My wrists were raw from rope burns. The cold bit through the silk of what used to be my favorite dress, now just a ruin clinging to my skin. He pressed the gun against my cheek, steady as a surgeon. For a second, I stopped breathing. I thought of the baby kicking once, small and defiant, as if reminding me there was still life inside me. Cole tilted his head. "Your husband says you talk too much. Guess we're fixing that." Lightning flashed, white, blinding, and for a single heartbeat, I saw a movement behind him. A shape, low, watchful, then a growl, deep, rolling, ancient. Cole spun around. What the hell? The dog stepped out of the rain like it owned the storm. Golden brown fur matted with mud, eyes burning the color of embered wood. No collar, no owner, just purpose. He barked once, sharp, commanding. Cole laughed. "You gotta be kidding me." He aimed. The gun went off. The sound ripped the night apart. When the smoke cleared, the dog was still standing. The bullet had grazed the asphalt inches away. He moved closer, slower this time, teeth bared, growl building like thunder finding its rhythm. Cole took a step back. Stupid mutt. That's when the animal lunged. The gun flew from his hand. Both vanished into the rain, rolling in the gravel, snarling and cursing and clawing for control. I forced my bound hands forward, scraping the rope against the edge of the trunk latch until pain became heat and heat became strength. The rope snapped. I stumbled out into the rain just as Cole shoved the dog away and raised a knife. "Stay down," he shouted. The dog didn't listen. He charged again, faster this time, jaws closing around Cole's wrist. The knife dropped, clattering into the puddles. Cole screamed, a sound that didn't belong to a human anymore. He kicked the dog hard, once, twice. Blood splattered across the headlights. Then he turned toward me, rage wild and desperate. "You should have stayed dead," he hissed. I grabbed the fallen knife. It felt heavy and cold, but it felt like a chance. He lunged. I swung. The blade caught his shoulder, enough to make him stumble. The dog was on him again before he could recover, teeth sinking deep into his arm. Cole's scream echoed across the highway, swallowed by the storm. Then, suddenly, silence. He dropped to the ground, motionless. The dog stood over him, chest heaving, rain running down his face like tears. For a long second, I thought he'd killed him. Then Cole groaned, clutching his wound, and crawled toward his car. He spat blood. You're both dead." He stumbled into the driver's seat and sped off, taillights disappearing into the night. The highway was empty again. Just me, the storm, and the dog who refused to leave. I collapsed beside him, shaking, breath fogging the cold air. He sniffed my wrist, then my stomach, then sat, guarding me. Every flash of lightning lit the red in his fur brighter, like he wore fire instead of blood. "Thank you," I whispered, voice breaking. "Who sent you?" He blinked once, slow, steady, as if the question didn't need an answer. Then he nudged my hand toward the forest, where faint lights flickered far away. Maybe a town, maybe help, or maybe just the next part of the nightmare. Either way, I wasn't alone anymore. That night, I stopped believing in coincidences. Because if the devil had sent the assassin, then heaven must have sent the dog. People always said David and I looked like the couple on a magazine cover. The kind of pair that made strangers sigh and whisper. That's what love should look like. They never saw the pages torn out between the pictures. I met him 3 years ago at the hospital where I worked nights as an ER nurse. He was the new trauma surgeon, confident, graceful in chaos. He could calm a screaming patient with one touch, then turn and make the interns tremble with a look. When he smiled at me over the operating table that first night, I thought I'd found safety in human form. He brought coffee when my shifts ran long, remembered how I took it. Extra cream, no sugar. He learned my favorite songs before I even told him. The first time he said I love you, he said it in the quietest way, standing behind me on the hospital rooftop, watching the city lights. "I love how you keep saving people," he whispered. I didn't realize he was studying how easy saving looked. 6 months later, We were married. He gave me a house just outside Charleston. White porch, roses climbing the fence, the kind of place that made you forget bad things could happen. He said we'd fill it with children and laughter. And for a while, I believed him. Then the laughter became schedules, budgets, numbers. I caught him on his phone late at night, whispering into the dark. When I asked, he said, "It's the hospital board. You wouldn't understand." The tone was new, sharp, final. The first time he shouted, it was over a broken wine glass. The second time, it was over a bill I'd paid twice. The third time, he didn't shout, he just smiled. That smile was worse. It meant he'd stopped pretending. One rainy Thursday, a patient's daughter came to the nurse's desk looking for me. She handed me an envelope. "My father said this belonged to your husband's office. Thought you should have it." Inside were forged invoices, research grants redirected to a private account under David's name. That night, I waited for him in the living room. The papers spread across the table. He walked in, loosened his tie, kissed my forehead, and froze when he saw them. "Where did you get those?" His voice was ice. "Doesn't matter," I said. "You're stealing from the hospital, David. People donate to save lives, not buy you another car." He stared at me for a long moment, then laughed softly. "You think you can fix me like one of your patients?" "I can report you," I said. "I will." The smile returned, polished and terrifying. Pregnant women shouldn't make threats. That's when I realized he'd already decided what to do with me. His hand brushed my shoulder, affectionate to anyone watching, but there was no one watching. Only the mirror, and the woman in it already disappearing. The next morning he woke early, cheerful again. He made pancakes, kissed me, told me to take the day off. "I've arranged a surprise," he said. "A late honeymoon getaway. Just us." His tone was pure honey, but his eyes, they never blinked. I told myself he was sorry. I told myself marriage was hard. I told myself love fixes things if you just hold on tight enough. I should have known that sometimes what you're holding is a knife. We drove north that evening, past the city lights and into the storm. He turned off the radio. Only the wipers filled the silence. I watched the rain streak across the windshield and thought of our first night together at the hospital, how safe his voice had sounded back then. Now every mile felt like distance from the truth I'd ignored. When the car slowed near the industrial district, I finally asked, "Where are we going?" He smiled without looking at me. "Somewhere peaceful." I remember thinking maybe he wanted to talk. Maybe this was the start of fixing things. I was still thinking that when I felt the sharp sting on my neck. A needle. A whisper. Sleep. The world folded into darkness. When I woke, I was in the trunk. Rope around my wrists. Rain on metal. And somewhere above me, a man humming as he drove. I didn't know yet who he was or that my husband had paid him. All I knew was that I wasn't supposed to wake up again. They say every story of love has a beginning and an end. But ours had both on the same night. The first thing I felt was motion. A low, steady vibration under my spine, like the earth itself was moving. Then the smell, damp metal, gasoline, and something sour that clung to my throat. When I opened my eyes, everything was black. I realized I was inside a moving car. No, not inside, beneath. The space was small, metal walls pressing against my shoulders. Every bump threw my head against the roof. The trunk. My wrists were bound again, the rope rougher this time, and my mouth tasted of tape glue. I tried to scream, but the sound came out a muffled sob. From the other side of the back seat came a man's voice humming. Not a melody. A rhythm. Short, cold, deliberate. The same hum I'd heard before the darkness swallowed me. Cole. He tapped the steering wheel in time with the music in his head, rain hammering the windshield. Occasionally, his phone buzzed. Once, I heard it vibrate longer than usual, followed by his rough voice. "It's done." "No, she won't talk again." "Yeah, the husband's money cleared." My heart clawed at my ribs. He paid him. David really paid him. I pressed my ear to the metal wall. The hum of tires changed. Asphalt turned to gravel. The car slowed. Then silence. The engine died. I stopped breathing. For a few seconds, there was only the whisper of rain. Then the key turned. Footsteps. The trunk latch clicked. Light exploded into my eyes. Cold air slapped my face. Cole's silhouette blocked the headlights. He wore a black raincoat, hood half drawn, pistol in one hand, flashlight in the other. Rain streamed off his gloves, glittering like mercury. His eyes were blue, sharp, detached, the kind that had seen death too many times to care anymore. He stared at me for a long second before pulling the tape from my mouth. The rip tore skin. "Where are we?" I croaked. He smiled. "Nowhere." He tilted his head toward the trees. "Mile 47. Closest neighbors 10 miles out. No cameras, no noise." He tossed the flashlight beam over my belly. "Well, aren't you a surprise?" My breath caught. "Please, I'm 8 months old. My baby." He cut me off. "Lady, I'm just a delivery guy. I don't make moral decisions. I just finish my contracts." He grabbed my arm and dragged me out. My feet hit the mud, bare and freezing. The warehouse loomed ahead, a hulking gray skeleton rising out of the storm, roof half-caved, windows shattered. Every flash of lightning carved its shadow deeper into the ground. Cole shoved me forward. "Walk." The metal door screeched open. Inside smelled of rust and wet paper. Crates lined the walls. Puddles mirrored the flickering light from his flashlight. Each step echoed like we were walking inside a hollow heart. He pushed me toward the center of the room and tied my wrists to a metal pole. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "Because he asked me to. You don't even know me. That's the point." He wiped water from his gun, checked the chamber, then looked up at the ceiling like he was bored. "Funny thing," he said, "husbands always ask for quick jobs. They don't want mess. But there's no clean way to do this, is there?" I shook my head. "You could walk away." He snorted. "Lady, I walked away from mercy a long time ago." Thunder rolled overhead. He raised the gun. My knees went weak. But then, something moved in the darkness behind him. A low growl. Cole froze. "You hear that?" The growl deepened, vibrating through the air. The flashlight trembled in his hand as he swung it toward the sound. "Probably a coyote," he muttered. The beam caught 2 eyes. Not yellow, not wild. Brown, steady, human almost. A dog stepped into the light, mud dripping from its fur. Ears pinned back. Its chest rose and fell like a machine warming up. Cole laughed nervously. "Where the hell did you come from?" He pointed the gun. "Get lost, mutt." The dog didn't move. Then it growled again, louder, lower, and took one deliberate step forward. Cole fired. The muzzle flash lit the walls white. The bullet hit metal somewhere behind me. The dog didn't even flinch. It launched itself forward, teeth flashing like broken glass. They crashed into a stack of crates. The sound was thunder inside thunder. Snarls, splintering wood, rain, curses. I yanked at the ropes until they cut into my wrists, pain lighting fire through my arms. The pole shifted. Once. Twice. Then the rusted base cracked, and I fell sideways, dragging it down with me. Cole staggered up, blood streaking his forearm. He kicked the dog away, breath ragged. "You want to die for her?" he hissed. The dog crouched low, tail straight, teeth bared, ready again. Its front paw bled, but it didn't back off. I crawled toward a fallen wrench, picked it up, and swung with every ounce left in me. The metal cracked against Cole's wrist. The gun flew across the floor. He screamed, turning on me. "You stupid." Before he could finish, the dog hit him again, jaws locking around his jacket. They spun across the floor, knocking over more crates. Cole grabbed a shard of glass, slashing wildly. The dog yelped, but didn't let go. Lightning flashed through the broken roof. For a heartbeat, everything froze. The man, the dog, the rain suspended in air. Then the roof groaned. Water poured in through the opening, drenching everything. Cole wrenched free and bolted for the door, limping, blood trailing behind him. He grabbed his phone on the hood of the car and shouted into it over the rain. "She's not dead yet, but she will be." The dog appeared at the entrance, blocking him. Cole aimed again, hands shaking, lips muttering something between a prayer and a curse. He fired twice. Both bullets missed. The third jammed. The dog lunged. They fell into the mud outside. Cole's head hit the edge of the doorway, hands shaking, breath broken. The rain blurred the world into watercolor. The dog limped toward me, blood and mud mixing on his fur. He stopped a few feet away, watching, waiting. My knees gave out. I sat in the doorway, sobbing into the storm. The rope still dangled from my wrists, heavy with water. I looked at him. He looked back. Lightning flashed again, and for an instant, I could swear I saw someone else in his eyes. Not a reflection, not me. Something older. Something that had been here before either of us. He turned his head toward the forest, barked once, then looked back at me, as if saying, "Come on. It's not over yet." I crawled to my feet, body trembling. Behind me, Cole groaned. He wasn't dead. Not yet. The dog barked sharply, pushing me forward with his muzzle. We ran, past the broken fence, through the mud, into the trees. Branches clawed at my arms. Thunder chased us from behind. For a moment I looked back, just long enough to see the warehouse fade behind the curtain of rain, one light still burning through the cracked roof, like a single eye watching us go. When we finally stopped, I collapsed beneath a pine tree, gasping for air. The dog circled once, then lay beside me, pressing against my side for warmth. I could hear his heartbeat. Fast. Alive. Real. I whispered, "You don't even know me. Why help?" He sighed. Yes, sighed, the way a tired man does after carrying too much weight. Then he rested his head on my lap. Above us, lightning split the sky, revealing the faint outline of a bridge in the distance, the Red River crossing. Maybe that's where safety was. Maybe not. All I knew was that something bigger than coincidence had put this dog in that warehouse. And whatever waited beyond that bridge, we'd face it together. That night, I learned that not every rescue wears a uniform. Some walk on four legs through hell just to find you. The rain didn't stop. It only changed its rhythm, from the steady hammer of fear to a whisper that followed us through the trees, like the storm itself was chasing our breath. Every step felt heavier than the last. Mud sucked at my bare feet, leaves tangled in my hair, and my lungs burned with cold air and panic. Beside me, the dog, still limping, still bleeding, moved like a ghost that refused to fall. I didn't know where we were going. I just knew we couldn't go back. Lightning strobed through the forest, turning the trunks into flashes of silver. The wind screamed overhead, bending branches like they were alive and angry. Somewhere far behind us, a gunshot cracked through the storm. I froze. The dog growled low, pressing his shoulder against my leg as if to say move. We ran again. Branches whipped my face. Thorns sliced at my skin. Every few steps, the baby kicked, a reminder that I wasn't just running for myself. I was running for two. I wanted to scream, to cry, to collapse, but the forest wouldn't allow it. It forced me forward, each gust of wind another shove between my shoulder blades. And through it all, the dog stayed near enough that I could feel his breath, hear his paws splash through puddles in rhythm with my heartbeat. We broke through a clearing where the rain looked like silver curtains. Ahead lay a slope, steep, rocky, disappearing into the dark. At the bottom, a faint glimmer of light blinked on and off. Maybe a cabin, maybe a trap. Either way, it was the only thing that didn't look like death. I knelt beside the dog. "You think we can make it?" He tilted his head, then started down the hill without hesitation. "Right. Follow the expert," I muttered, trying to keep up. Halfway down, the ground gave out beneath my foot. I slipped, slid, hit the dirt hard, rolled through mud and sticks until I crashed against a log. Pain exploded through my side. For a few seconds, I just lay there, gasping, rain filling my mouth. Then I heard the bark, short, urgent. He was beside me again, pawing at my arm, nose nudging my face. "I'm fine," I whispered. "I'm fine, I swear." I wasn't. My shoulder throbbed, my ribs screamed, and the baby kicked hard, frightened by the fall. But there was no time to stop. From behind us, voices. 2, maybe 3. Cole hadn't come alone after all. I grabbed a broken branch to steady myself and started moving again. The dog trotted ahead, pausing every few feet to make sure I was following. His tail barely moved. He was focused, hunting or protecting, maybe both. Through the trees, flashlights danced. Someone shouted, "She went this way." The dog turned his head sharply. He barked once, low and deliberate, like a soldier signaling incoming. I whispered, "Quiet." He understood. He dropped low, crawling through the brush beside me. We reached a small creek, shallow, fast-moving, cutting through the middle of the woods like a silver vein. I remembered something from a survival video. Walk in water to lose your scent. I stepped in, cold biting my ankles, the current pushing hard. The dog followed without hesitation, water reaching his chest. We walked downstream, every splash sounding like thunder in the quiet. Behind us, the voices grew fainter, lost under the roar of rain and water. When we finally climbed out on the other side, my legs were trembling. I collapsed beside an old oak tree, pressing a hand to my stomach. The baby was still. Too still. "Please," I whispered. "Not now. Not here." The dog sat beside me, breathing hard, watching me with eyes that looked too human. He nudged my palm with his nose. When I didn't move, he whined softly and licked the mud off my hand, as if to remind me I was still alive. That tiny, warm touch snapped me back. I'm okay, I told him, maybe more to myself than to him. We're okay. We just have to keep going. We moved again. The rain softened, turning into mist that floated between the trees. I could see better now, the outlines of distant fences, the curve of a road, the faint glow of streetlights far ahead. Civilization. Hope. But between us and that hope was open ground, and open ground meant exposure. I crouched behind a fallen log, trying to plan. That's when the dog stiffened. His ears went up, body tense. A moment later, I heard it too, an engine. Headlights swept through the trees, slow, methodical. A pickup truck, crawling along the dirt road, spotlight mounted on top. Cole. I ducked lower, clutching the dog's collar. He didn't growl this time. He was too smart for that. He just pressed his body against mine, both of us holding our breath while the light passed inches above our heads. I could hear him shouting from inside the truck. She's close. Keep looking. When the light finally moved away, I let out a shaky breath. The dog looked up at me, eyes sharp, calculating. He turned his head toward the far side of the clearing, where the bridge shimmered faintly through the fog. It was half collapsed, old steel, the kind you see in forgotten towns. That's where you want to go? I asked. He barked once. Of course it is. We waited until the truck turned around, its taillights vanishing into the trees. Then we ran. The bridge loomed ahead, slick with rain, every step clanging under our feet. Below, the river raged, black water smashing against rocks like fists. Halfway across, thunder rolled again, louder, closer. I stopped to catch my breath, gripping the rusted railing. The dog trotted a few steps ahead, sniffing the air, then froze. A second later, I saw why. Cole's truck burst from the tree line, headlights slicing through the mist. He'd seen us. The engine roared, tires spinning mud. Go! I screamed, pushing forward. The dog barked once and sprinted toward the other end of the bridge. I followed, heart pounding so hard it drowned out the storm. The truck skidded to a stop at the base of the bridge. Cole jumped out, gun in hand. He shouted something I couldn't hear over the wind. Lightning flashed, illuminating his face, twisted, furious, blood-streaked. I ducked behind a support beam, clutching my stomach. The baby moved again, a single sharp kick that felt like both pain and promise. The dog crouched beside me, growling low, every muscle coiled. Cole's footsteps echoed on the metal grates. Closer, closer. He was hunting by sound now. Come on out, sweetheart, he shouted. Let's finish what we started. I glanced at the dog. His fur bristled. We were out of time. He looked at me once. That same look from the warehouse. Then bolted into the open, barking wildly to draw the fire away from me. Gunshots cracked. Sparks flew off the metal. The bridge shuddered under each echo. No, I screamed, but the storm swallowed my voice. The dog zigzagged, fast despite the limp, darting between support beams. Cole cursed, reloading, rain dripping down his face. He didn't see me move behind him, inch by inch toward a loose steel pipe lying by the rail. My hand closed around it just as he turned. I swung. The pipe crashed into his shoulder. He staggered, gun clattering to the floor. The dog leapt, tackling him into the mud. For a moment, man and beast were one tangle of fury, snarls, shouts, the river screaming below. Cole managed to shove him off, grabbing the gun again. He aimed at me. Before he could fire, the dog slammed into him a final time. The shot went wild. Cole slipped on the slick metal, arms flailing, and vanished over the railing. A single scream, then silence. The river below swallowed him whole. I stood there shaking, breath ragged, rain washing the blood from my hands. The dog limped toward me, soaked, trembling, eyes never leaving the edge. We both stared into the darkness below, waiting for something. Maybe guilt, maybe peace. When nothing came, I sank to my knees. He pressed against me, his body warm, heartbeat steady. I wrapped my arms around him and sobbed into his fur until the storm quieted. That bridge wasn't an escape, it was a rebirth. That night, I lost everything I thought love was, and found what love truly meant. The storm finally began to slow, but the world still trembled. Thunder rolled farther away, echoing like a heartbeat that refused to stop. For a long time, I just knelt there on the bridge, holding the dog, the smell of wet steel and gunpowder thick in the air. Below us, the river raged, black, bottomless, swallowing everything that dared to fall. David's hired killer was gone. Or at least, that's what I wanted to believe. The current had taken him, but the forest didn't feel safe yet. The wind hissed through the broken guardrails, rattling a loose, weight limit 3 tons sign that clanged with every gust. It sounded almost like laughter, mocking, cruel. I pressed my hand against my belly. The baby kicked again, stronger this time. Alive. Still fighting. Okay. I whispered through my shaking breath. We keep moving. We finish this. The dog looked up, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. He was exhausted, bleeding, ribs rising and falling too fast, but when I stood, he stood with me. Across the bridge. Each step groaned beneath us. The bridge swayed, half-rotted wood creaking, rust flakes falling like red snow into the river. Rainwater dripped from the girders above, landing in rhythmic taps that kept time with my heartbeat. Halfway across, I stopped. Something glimmered near the railing. A piece of fabric caught on a bolt. I reached out and pulled it free. It was torn silk, soaked and faded, but unmistakable, a strip of a wedding veil. My breath caught. Someone else had been here. Someone before me. I knelt, tracing the edge of the cloth. The dog sniffed it once, then backed away, ears low, a soft whine escaping his throat. What is it, boy? He wouldn't move forward. He just stared into the mist ahead, tail stiff, muscles trembling, not from weakness, but from recognition. That's when I heard it. A voice, faint, carried on the wind. Help, please. It sounded like a woman's whisper, thin and fading. I turned toward the other side of the bridge. There was no one. Only fog thick as smoke. The dog growled, deep and uneasy. I couldn't tell if the sound came from his throat or the river below. The bridge ended in a dirt road half buried under fallen branches. A sign leaned sideways against a tree, its letters almost washed away by rain. Red River Forest, no trespassing. The dog trotted ahead, nose to the ground, following something unseen. I followed him into the tree line. For a while we walked in silence. The rain had thinned to a drizzle, the sky lightening just enough to paint the world in dull gray. Birds hadn't returned yet. Even they seemed afraid to sing here. Then, in the clearing ahead, I saw it, a cabin. Small, crooked, half hidden under vines, smoke leaking weakly from the chimney. Light glowed through a crack in the door. Someone's here, I whispered. Maybe safety. Maybe another trap. At that moment, I didn't care which. The dog pressed his nose against the air, then looked back at me. His tail wagged once. The door was unlocked. When it swung open, the smell of damp wood and old coffee greeted me. Inside was clutter, maps, photographs, a small radio still flickering with static. And on the wall, a badge nailed to the wood. Sheriff Miles Grant. I remembered that name. The news reports. The officer who vanished investigating missing brides 5 years ago. The dog walked to the corner of the room and stopped in front of an old blanket folded neatly on the floor. He pawed it once, then sat. When I lifted the blanket, my chest tightened. Underneath lay a collar, rusted and broken. The tag read, Ranger. I looked at him. The same brown fur, the same amber eyes. Is that you? I whispered. He didn't answer, of course, but his gaze held mine long enough that I knew. He belonged to the sheriff. And when his master died in these woods, he never left. He'd stayed, guarding, watching, waiting for the next soul to save. On the desk sat a small tape recorder, its red light still blinking. Curiosity pulled me closer. I pressed play. A man's voice crackled through the static, steady, weary, haunted. Grant here. Day 38. The disappearances keep happening. Every woman in red, every one newly married. I've found the pattern, the husbands. Different names, same man. He changes faces, states, everything. I think he's calling himself David Morris now. My knees gave out. The tape continued. If anyone finds this, trust the dog. He knows the path. The forest listens to him. Tell the world I tried. Static swallowed the rest. I sat in silence, the truth crushing me heavier than the ropes ever had. David wasn't just a liar. He was a collector. A predator wrapped in vows and perfume. The dog rested his head on my knee, eyes sad but steady, as if saying, You're not the first, but you'll be the last. A crash outside broke the moment. Metal. Heavy. Then, Footsteps. I turned off the recorder and crept to the window. Headlights again. A second vehicle. For a heartbeat, my mind refused to believe it. But the impossible moved through the rain. Cole. Alive. His face was a mask of blood and mud, eyes burning with something worse than pain. He held a flashlight in one hand, a shotgun in the other. He staggered, limping, water dripping from his coat. He'd climbed out of that river and crawled back through hell to finish what he started. The dog growled, deep and thunderous. I whispered, "No, not this time." He stepped between me and the door, tail straight, fur rising. Lightning flashed again, and for a moment I could see both of them, man and beast, framed in the doorway like two parts of the same fate. Cole shouted, "You can't kill me with ghosts, lady." Then he fired. The blast tore through the wooden wall. Splinters exploded across the room. The dog barked once, lunging toward the sound as I dove behind the desk. Another shot, then silence. When I looked up, smoke hung in the air. The dog stood in the doorway, chest heaving, muzzle streaked with blood that wasn't his. Cole lay face down in the mud, unmoving this time. The shotgun beside him hissed with steam. I stumbled outside, hit the barrel, legs trembling. The river thundered somewhere behind the trees, still swallowing secrets. Lightning flickered weakly, the storm finally dying. The dog limped toward the bridge again, pausing at its edge. He looked back once, waiting for me. We crossed together. Each step felt like crossing from death into something new. By the time we reached the far side, dawn had begun to break, thin rays of pale gold cutting through the fog. I sank to the ground, every bone screaming. He sat beside me, head pressed against my shoulder. For the first time all night, I smiled. "You did it," I whispered. He licked the back of my hand gently, eyes closing as if he finally believed it too. I tore a strip from my ruined dress and wrapped it around his wounded leg. "You're coming with me now," I said softly. "We're not ghosts anymore." Behind us, the forest began to wake. Birds calling, water calming, light crawling slowly through the branches. It felt like the world exhaling after holding its breath too long. I looked down at my belly, feeling the faintest flutter of movement. "He's still here," I murmured. "He's still fighting." The dog wagged his tail once, then rested beside me. And for the first time since the nightmare began, dawn crawled over the forest like a wounded animal. The sky was gray, torn open by thin veins of pink light that made everything look half dead, half born again. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the world still dripped. Trees, leaves, the bridge we'd crossed. Every drop hit the mud with the rhythm of a heartbeat that wasn't ready to slow down. I sat against the trunk of an old pine, legs folded, arms wrapped protectively around my belly. The dog, Ranger, lay beside me, eyes half closed, body trembling from exhaustion. His breathing was shallow but steady. I tied another strip of fabric around his shoulder where the shotgun blast had grazed him. The wound was raw, but he didn't complain. He never did. The forest was quiet, too quiet. Every rustle made my skin tighten. Cole's body had disappeared by the time the storm ended. Either the current took him, or something else did. I didn't know which was worse. I looked down at Ranger. "We can't rest long. Someone will come." He blinked once, slow, as if agreeing but unwilling to move yet. When the first distant sound came, the low hum of an engine, my stomach turned to ice. Not again. I crawled to the edge of the ridge and peered through the trees. Down below, the dirt road twisted like a scar through the valley, and on it crawled a black SUV, roof lights flashing red and blue. At first, relief, police. Then, suspicion. David had friends in every corner of the city. Money bought silence faster than justice could shout. I couldn't risk it. I pulled back and pressed my forehead against Ranger's. His ears flicked. "Listen," I whispered. "If I tell you to run, you run, okay?" He tilted his head. "No hero stuff this time." He sighed, actually sighed, and it almost made me laugh, if I hadn't been so scared. The SUV stopped near the edge of the forest. Two men got out, both wearing police jackets. But even from up here, I saw it. Their badges were wrong. No shine, no weight. Cheap copies. One opened the back door, and David stepped out. My breath caught. He looked cleaner than I expected. Pressed shirt, dark coat, no scratches, like he'd driven straight from the hospital to a movie set. Only his eyes betrayed him, wild, empty, glassy like a snake's. He held a phone to his ear. "She's not answering. Cole said she'd be done by now." He paused, listening, then cursed. I don't care how much it costs, find the body. The sound of his voice sliced through me worse than the rain had. He was hunting me himself now. He walked toward the tree lean, gun holstered under his coat, eyes sweeping the woods. The fake cops followed with flashlights. I whispered. He came for the evidence. The dog pressed closer to my leg. They reached the bridge, inspecting the broken rails and blood on the steel. One of the men said, "Looks like she went over." David knelt, touched the railing, stared at the river below. "She didn't," he said softly. "She's too stubborn to die that easily." He turned, looking straight into the forest, straight at me, though he couldn't see. "I know you can hear me, Elena." His voice echoed through the trees. "You think this dog will save you again? You're mine. You always were." My hands clenched. The baby shifted inside me, like he could feel the hate in the air. I leaned close to Ranger. "Stay low." We crawled along the ridge, staying hidden behind roots and fallen logs. I could smell smoke now, faint but sharp. The SUV's tailpipe still hissed. Its engine was running. A thought sparked in my head. If I could get to that car, if I could drive it, we could be out of here before he even realized where we'd gone. I pointed toward the slope. "We have to go down." Ranger looked at me, then at the three men below, then back at me. His tail flicked once in irritation. "I know it's crazy," I whispered, "but it's all we've got." We moved quietly, step by step, sliding down the slope where the mud was softest. The trick was timing, moving only when wind rustled the trees or when thunder rolled in the distance. Halfway down, I slipped. My hand hit a rock, pain shooting up my arm. The sound wasn't loud, but loud enough. David's head snapped up. He raised his gun. "Who's there?" I froze. Ranger pressed flat against the mud, invisible in the shadows. The fake cops spread out. One walked left, one right. David came forward slowly, gun steady, boots sinking into wet ground. "Come on out, honey. You know how this ends. Don't make it messy." I closed my eyes, heart hammering. If he found us, there'd be no talking, no mercy. Then Ranger moved. He darted left, circling behind a fallen log, letting out a short bark, enough to draw their attention. "There!" one of the men shouted, aiming his flashlight. The beam hit Ranger's eyes, golden fire in the dark. Shots rang out. Sparks flew off the bark of trees. I bit my lip hard enough to taste blood. Ranger zigzagged through the underbrush, fast as lightning, dodging bullet after bullet until he vanished into the fog. David cursed. "Get that damn dog." The men followed the sound deeper into the forest, leaving David alone on the path. I crawled forward, mud in my teeth, every nerve screaming. The SUV was 20 feet away now. David turned his back for a moment, checking his phone. I stood, ran, slipped, caught myself, ran again. My hand hit the driver's door. I yanked it open and dove inside. The keys were still in the ignition. I twisted. The engine roared. David spun, gun drawn, eyes wide. "Elena." The first bullet shattered the side mirror. The second hit the hood. I floored the gas. The tires spun mud. The car fishtailed, then lunged forward. He jumped aside as I roared past, the mirror clipping his shoulder. The dog appeared out of nowhere, sprinting from the woods, leaping into the open passenger door like he'd done it 100 times before. I slammed the door shut, breathless. "Good boy," I gasped. "Now hang on." We flew down the dirt road, branches whipping across the windshield. Behind us, shouts and engines roared to life. They were chasing us. The forest blurred into streaks of green and gray. The bridge reappeared ahead, the Red River Bridge, slick and glinting in the newborn light. Beyond it, open highway. Freedom. But as we hit the first planks, the tires slipped. The whole vehicle swerved dangerously toward the railing. I screamed and corrected, heart pounding. Ranger barked, claws scraping the seat as he tried to steady himself. We were almost across when the SUV behind us crashed onto the bridge, lights blinding in the rearview mirror. David was driving now. He rammed the back bumper, metal screaming against metal. The car jolted. My seatbelt dug into my stomach. "Hold on." The dog growled, bracing his body against the seat. David rammed again, harder this time. The bridge groaned. Rust flakes rained from the ceiling beams. And then, a deafening crack. The old planks gave way beneath his front tires. The SUV tilted forward, headlights pointing straight into the river below. David's scream echoed as his car plunged through the gap, swallowed by the water. The sound faded into the roar of the current. I stopped on the far side, chest heaving, tears mixing with rainwater. The world was silent except for the soft ticking of the engine. Ranger climbed into my lap, pressing his forehead against my chin. We sat there, shaking, until the sunrise finally broke through the trees. Thin, gold, holy. I looked down at him. "It's over," I whispered. "We did it." He wagged his tail once. But even as I said it, I knew we weren't done yet. Because the man who'd fallen wasn't just my husband. He was the disease that had infected everything. And even dead men leave shadows. At that moment, I didn't feel like prey anymore. I felt like something the storm had rebuilt. Harder, quieter, unbreakable. And I wasn't running from monsters anymore. I was learning how to hunt them. The world went quiet after the plunge. Not the kind of silence that soothes, the kind that listens. Rain misted off the trees, whispering secrets into the river. The current below swallowed the last bubbles of air from the sinking SUV, and the forest exhaled, long, heavy, final. I sat behind the wheel, hands locked around it, knuckles white. Every nerve screamed to move, but I couldn't. The bridge shook once more, then settled. Somewhere far below, the Red River reclaimed another secret. Ranger shifted in the passenger seat, pressing his head against my arm. His fur was soaked, but his eyes, those steady amber eyes, were the only thing in the world that still felt alive. I whispered, "He's gone." Ranger didn't blink. He looked toward the forest, ears twitching, as if to say, "Not yet." The next time I woke, the sky was blue. Not the bruised gray I'd come to know, not the washed-out ghost of dawn, but the kind of blue that makes you believe the world forgives itself every morning. I was lying in a hospital bed, sunlight crawling across the sheets, fur humming beside me. The rhythmic beep of the heart monitor was slow, steady, a lullaby reminding me I was still here. When I turned my head, a nurse smiled. "You're safe now, Mrs. Morris," she said softly. "You're at Charleston General." For a moment, the name didn't register. It was like hearing a life that used to belong to someone else. "Elena," I whispered. "Just Elena." Her eyes softened. "Of course. The sheriff wants to talk to you when you're ready." Then she left, leaving the door open just enough for sunlight and voices to spill through. The questions. Sheriff Harlow entered an hour later, hat in hand. He was older, broad-shouldered, with the kind of face carved from years of listening to bad news. He sat at the foot of the bed, clearing his throat. "You've been through hell, ma'am," he began. "But I want you to know, it's over. We found him." I swallowed. "David?" He nodded. "Downriver. The current carried him nearly 6 miles. It's a miracle we found any trace." He hesitated. "There was something else, the body of another man. Cole something. The hitman, I assume." I looked at the window instead of his face. Miracle's not the word I'd use. He sighed. "Your story matches the evidence. The forgeries, the bank transfers. The press is already calling it the Red River Bride case. You're going to hear that name a lot." "I don't want to," I said quietly. "I understand. But one thing's puzzling my team." He pulled out a small object from his pocket and placed it on the bedside table. A rusted dog tag, scratched but legible. "Ranger, K9 unit number 47. He leaned back. "You said there was a dog with you, right? Our divers never found him. Locals claim no dogs have lived near Red River in years. Are you sure you didn't hit your head?" I smiled faintly. Maybe I did. But he was real enough to bleed. He studied me for a long time, then nodded slowly. "Well, if he saved your life, we'll add his name to the report. Every hero deserves a record." As he left, sunlight hit the dog tag. For an instant, it gleamed, like it was winking. The healing. The weeks that followed blurred into hospital meals, therapy sessions, and whispered visits from people I didn't know, but who said things like, "You're brave," and "God has a plan." I smiled when they did, but inside, I wondered if bravery was just what people called survival after it stopped hurting to breathe. The baby came early, 2 weeks before the due date. A boy, tiny but strong, lungs loud enough to wake the floor. When they placed him in my arms, all I could think of was how small miracles always feel heavier than they look. His fingers curled around mine like he'd been holding on the whole time. I whispered, "You held the storm, didn't you?" His eyes fluttered open, and for a second, I swore they had the same shade of amber as Rangers. The visitors. A month later, reporters came. Some polite, some hungry. They wanted the story, the fear, the photos. One asked, Do you think you survived by luck or by faith? Another, was the dog real or a trauma projection? I told them the truth. Maybe he was real. Maybe he was sent. But I know what I felt, and I felt him breathing. That line made the headlines. They called it the miracle of Red River. Within days, rescue organizations flooded social media with his image, a brown dog with a red bandana, painted from eyewitness descriptions. People sent letters, donations, and prayers. One shelter even renamed their adoption drive Ranger's Promise. The world loves a story that hurts just enough to heal. The return. 3 months after the trial, after the headlines faded and my son started smiling in his sleep, I drove back to the bridge. The forest had grown quiet again, but not silent. It hummed, a living thing rebuilding itself. The old cross still stood by the riverbank. Someone, maybe Sheriff Harlow, had cleaned it and carved 2 new names beneath. Ranger, Elena, and child, survivors. I laid down a bouquet of wildflowers. The wind stirred softly, rustling the leaves above me. Thank you, I whispered, for teaching me that some angels don't have wings. Some just have fur and stubborn hearts. Then I heard it, faint, distant, the sound of paws splashing through shallow water. A bark, carried by the breeze. It faded slowly, replaced by birdsong. I smiled. He still watches, I said. 10 years later, the river looked different. The bridge had been rebuilt, steel replaced by concrete, the old warning signs polished until they gleamed in the sunlight. A new plaque stood near the edge, small but proud. In memory of Ranger, the guardian of Red River. Every spring, children from the nearby town left red bandanas on the railing. Sometimes, when the wind was right, they'd swear they heard paws on the walkway, soft, even, patient. I stood there now with my son's hand in mine. He was taller than me, strong like his father used to pretend to be, but kind in ways David never was. The same amber eyes, the same unbreakable calm. "Mom," he said, looking out over the water, "do you really think he's still out there?" I smiled. He never left. The river shimmered gold beneath the sun, its current slow and forgiving. Somewhere beyond the far bend, a shape moved through the reeds, quick, brown, familiar. I didn't blink. I didn't need to. Some truths you feel in your bones. The legend lives. After the case closed, the story spread further than I ever imagined. Police K, 9 units were named Ranger. Shelters across the country adopted the red bandana promise. For every rescue, a red scarf to mark a second chance. People sent letters saying his story made them brave enough to leave, to fight, to heal. Sometimes, when I spoke at survivor gatherings, I'd see the same look in their eyes that I'd once seen in his. Tired, cautious, but alive. I'd tell them, survival isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of the legend you'll leave behind. The Guardian's return. One evening, after a long day at the clinic, I walked the trail along Red River alone. The forest had changed, but certain sounds never did. The whisper of leaves, the hush before the wind turns. Then I heard it. One bark, clear and familiar. I turned. Nothing. Just light dancing through dust. But I could smell rain coming, faint and sweet, the same way it had smelled that night. I laughed softly. Still keeping watch, aren't you? Years will pass, names will fade, and even stories this loud will settle into whispers. But not his. Because every time someone chooses courage over fear, every time a life is pulled from the dark, the world remembers. Some stories end with silence. Ours ends with a heartbeat. Because somewhere, beneath the endless hum of water and wind, Ranger still runs.